So go ahead and open up your Visual Studio Code. And what you want to do is create a new directory inside of your GitHub folder. We're going to just call this Web Tables. Inside of your Web Tables example, we're going to create a new file, and we'll call this our web tables.html. And for simplicity's sake, we'll go ahead and use the emit autocomplete for us here. And web tables are essentially nothing more than tabular organizations of data. So when we're creating a table, we'll start out with the table tag. And inside the table tag, we generally have what are called rows. And these rows are organized by the TR tag. That stands for table row. And each table row will contain a set of table cells. Now, the HTML tag they use for a table cell is originally aligned to a table data entry. And so this will be your TD. So this is a table cell, but it's also called the table, the TD tag. So in essence, right now I have one table with one row and one table cell. And if we were to visualize this, let me see if I can change the location here. This is a little problematic since I'm recording at the same time. Can you all see the HTML page I loaded?
Yes.
Is it showing up inside of the view area?
I don't see it.
You don't see it? Okay. So let me adjust the what I'm sharing here, and we will display the HTML document. So you can see that this is, if we're inspecting it, you can see that you have a table. Chrome goes ahead and applies what is called a T-body, and we'll talk about the T-body later. But inside of that, we have our TR and then our TD for our table cell. So this is kind of important in the layout. This is kind of important in the layout of what we're using for our tables. And so let's go back here again to our code. And we'll go ahead and add a few more tables to this. I'll tell you what, let me do this, because I think the way this is laid out, it's going to be kind of hard to visualize. So let me do this. I'm going to drag this over there, minimize this a little bit, and so we can see everything in one go. Okay, you all just bear with me just a moment here before I reshare again. Okay, now let me back and share this again. And there we go. You should be able to see both screens now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right, so we have our TD here. We're going to add another one, and this will be a second table cell. And this is all on one row, so this is actually a second column. So we'll put this one as hello world. We'll save it and refresh. And so now we have two columns, but this is actually a little bit difficult to see. So let's go ahead and create a style sheet over here. And I'm going to say table border of 1px solid and black. We're going to give our our table cell itself. We're going to do the same thing. Apply that style. Now let's go back to our web tables and we'll add a link to our CSS. Let's go ahead and revisualize this. So now we can see we have two columns inside of our table cell. Not a lot to it at this point. So let's think about some other things that we could put up here for our columns. Let's change the first column here to be, let's make this a time, and let's make this one Monday, Tuesday, and we will go ahead and fill this on out. Let's actually call this Sunday, Monday. Whoops. I do not know what happened there. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We need one more. And there is our Saturday. So when we visualize this, we can now see that we have these objects kind of laid out in a more meaningful fashion. We have one row that lays them out. So let's go ahead and create a second row. And because we have in the top row here, the top TR, we have 8 items. We also want to include 8 items to lay out what will be below it. So I'm just going to start off with a TD again, and we'll set this one at 0600. We'll go to the next line and let's see, I think I've already got more than 8. Let's go ahead and just demonstrate what happens, first of all, when the columns themselves don't match up. You kind of get this strange layout where they continue to trail off into the right, but the header itself doesn't align. So we have 4 that we can see here that are added, and that's too many. So we'll save that, refresh it. And so we have our first column. We have our, we have our second row. What I want to do is I want to say at 6 a.m. on Monday, I am eating breakfast. And maybe on Monday morning, I'm doing something different. Maybe I am I'm still sleeping. On Tuesday morning at 6 a.m., what are you guys doing at Tuesday morning, 6 a.m.? Are any of you going to the gym? No one works out?
I'm usually at work at that time.
Oh, you're already at work. Okay. All right. So this person's already at work. How about, let's see, I'm not sure what day this is. We'll just say gym for this one. For this one, we're going to say start studying. And for Friday, at 6 a.m. we're sleeping, and Saturday we're sleeping. So if we refresh this, you can see that we've kind of got a little bit of a schedule laid out. Well, let's go ahead and add a little bit more here to our table rows and table TDs. And it's very simple. We'll just copy and paste it. I'm going to change the time scope for the next one. I'm going to say the next one's at 6:30, right? So save it, we'll refresh. We can see at 6:30, we're going to say showering, drinking coffee, working already. Let's see. I don't know. Push-ups at the gym, maybe. Still studying. Let's say eating breakfast, and Saturday, still sleeping. All right. So now we have a little bit different layout of our schedule. And of course, we could take this out again. Another layer, copy and paste. We'll now change this to say maybe 0700. And you guys get the idea. So we have a very basic layout to our tables right now, but it's kind of hard to look at, right? A lot of the styling elements are a little difficult to wrap our heads around. And so what are some things that we could do to, make the tables themselves look a little bit better? Well, let's say that for our first row up here, this is really what we would call a table header. And one of the things you can do in HTML is you can actually annotate these to be, you can annotate a particular section to be a T head. So we're just going to cut that, put it there. Let's reformat the document. Actually, I did this wrong, I think. This goes inside. No, I did do it right. Did do it right. So at this point, we're kind of reformatting the section here and marking it with, semantically speaking, the layout of the table. So if this first section is a table header, then most likely this next section is going to be what we call the table body. So again, we'd do the same thing. We would highlight the section itself as being the table body and align it as such. Now, actually, this whole section here, let's grab this and move it down to here. And tab that over. So now we've got, semantically, we've aligned this top column to be the table header and the bottom sections to be the table body. And this is important because in some JavaScript libraries and some CSS libraries that you may use, they require for the table, the web table itself, to be broken out in this format. They require things to be stored in a table body. If we go ahead and do an inspection on this again, we can see that we have the table, we have the T head, we have the T body, and things are broken out appropriately. Now, another tag that we can use to actually specify these and make them more readable is called the TH. And so with the TH, we're just basically going to change the look and feel using the semantics of the table header tag, and it actually causes that item to be bolded. So we'll go ahead and change all of these to the THs. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay. This can get a little tedious, but the way that table data is laid out, it's very important to recognize the semantically correct tag to use in its place. So I'm going to finish changing all of these. I'll save the document again, and then we'll refresh. Now you can see that actually the header lays out a little bit better to what we would expect. But let's go back to our styles. Because we specified a TD of 1px solid black, we know that here, this does not exist in that format. So let's just go ahead and say TD and TH have that same quality. If we refresh it, we lose those, don't we? So let's see here. What are we missing? It's the comma. That's what we needed. So now we get that layout back again. But this is kind of bothersome, right? I really don't want to see this spacing beside everything. One of the things that you can do to collapse that spacing is use something called the border collapse. So we'll come in here and we'll say border, where are you at? Border collapse, and we'll say collapse. Refresh it again. Did I not save it? There we go. So the border collapse operates in the table tag itself, and it basically says don't include any spacing in between it, right? Now there are other options here that you can apply to border collapse. Let me see what those are real quick. I'll look them up for you. Currently, you have separate, which I'm not sure what that does. These are actually new properties. Okay, separate, it gives us that. Collapse gives us what we expected, and we have initial and we have inherit. So separate means that the borders are separated. Each cell will display in its own borders, and that's the default. Collapse takes the border spacing and does what we actually want it to do. We want these to collapse down a little bit. And then, of course, you have initial. This is also the same as separate and inherit. And inherit is going to inherit whatever has been defined at the higher level for that table or that CSS. Okay. So far we have it laid out like so, and this is kind of useful, but we really want, maybe a little bit better spacing. So let's add a margin inside of here, and we'll just say 5 pixels on our margin. And that doesn't actually give us what we're after. Let's do padding. I think padding is the one we want. There we go. So now we've added a little bit of a spacing on the internal of our borders. And that makes the table look a little bit better for us, right? It makes more sense. Well, let's go ahead and do some other styling here. So we have our TH head, and let's say that we want the background color of our TH to be, let's say we want it to be, what's a good color here? dark slate gray. Okay. So now let's change that, but we kind of lose a little bit of the header color. So we'll change the for color by using the color property, and we'll assign it, let's just assign it white. So we assign this white, and now we get a little bit better readability. Any questions so far in what we've covered with the table head, and the table body?
No questions.
Okay. Now, all of this as well, we can apply through a style class. So for example, if we want to organize our styles to be only by, maybe this is the schedule class. So we could set our schedule class, and then we could come over here and we could say schedule, or let me back up here, table dot schedule, right? We'll save that. And now that style has applied. If we go over here and we say table border collapse and separate, this is getting to the question of which level of specificity wins, right? So we have separate and we have collapse, but we may have actually other tables on the page. So when we refresh it, nothing happens. So let's think about it from this perspective. Let's just copy this entire group again. We'll go to the bottom, and let's use a BR tag. And let's use a horizontal line tag. And we'll paste that again, but this time we're going to take out the schedule class. Save it, and we'll refresh. And what you can see, based on the styles here, because the general table says border collapse is separate, this applies. But here in border schedule, because it's a class that's applied to this top table, the border collapse is applied. Good golly, Gecko just landed on my keyboard. You all didn't see it fall, did you? Okay, back to what we were looking at here. So we have our section of tables up here at the top, and there's other types of things that we can do to mark our table as well. There's a third area for marking our table, and that's called the table footer. So if we think about the table footer is going to be a section that appears at the bottom of the page. So let's go ahead and create a table footer real quick. We'll come over here. We're going to, whoops. Let me bring this back into alignment. There we go. We're going to create a T foot element. Inside of it, we'll create a TR. And for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to copy this top section. Okay. Copy the top section. And I'm going to put that right here. Now, when we save this and refresh the page, we're going to see the same element laid out again. But you may be wondering, well, how come the style doesn't apply? Well, you have to look at your style sheet. Number one, table schedule, excuse me, the TD and the TH. Here we go. The table head has a dark slate gray, and the color is white, but we don't have anything that applies to the table footer. So we'll just go ahead and specify table foot. And for the table foot, we'll go ahead and specify a background color. And for this, I want it to be something strong. So I'm going to say black, and the fore color is going to be white. So when we refresh that, we actually then have this bottom section. Now, we want to keep things in line with the particular class we're using. So it's a good idea to go ahead and say, okay, for this table schedule, everything that everything that's right here, we want it to only affect these elements, right? We don't want it to align to every table on the page because every table could be different, but we only want these styles to affect things that are children of the schedule class. So I've made these changes, and when I save it, you can see that the bottom table now, those styles don't affect it. That's because the level of specificity that we've required of it says anything that has the class, anything that is a child of table class is going to have these styles. Now we could take away that specificity and we could go back again, but in general, this is the idea. We want to keep things fairly specific in our CSS when it applies to the tables. Okay, let's see here. We're kind of getting into really the next topic, and this comes to the idea of how we span our tables and our columns. Sometimes there's going to be a task, say in your life, that's going to be the same task that's done every day, right? Be the same time every day. So let's go back to our web table. We're going to change the layout here a little bit. I'm going to, instead of saying time here, I'm going to change the layout of this table to be more along the lines of the time going left to right and the days of the week going down. So let's kind of reorganize that. If we do that, this is going to be the day column, and up here is going to be 0600, followed by 0630, followed by 0700, followed by, let's just say 0800, right? 0900, 1000 hours, 1100 hours, and so forth. And this means that these items then are going to need to be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Now, when you're laying out your tables, you want to think about the user, the way they look at the data. And some of you may be thinking, well, maybe I think better, Mr. Rogers, in going tabular down from 0 to whatever time of day to the ending time of day. But let's say that we're looking at a TV schedule, right? Maybe this is not the days of the week, but maybe this is like the channel guide. And up here is the times going across. But maybe this is just a schedule for you, what you're doing at each time slot during the day. So if we think about a personal schedule, what we do during the day, this means that this particular layout may not make as much sense to what we want to do. So let's go ahead and refresh this. And now we have it laid out a little bit differently. We can see that at 0600, we're eating breakfast. On Sunday, you're sleeping, which is weird, right? And going to work, then going to the gym, start studying, right? But we kind of lay things out a little bit better. Let's go to our Monday and think about what would happen at Sunday at 6 a.m. Let's say we're eating breakfast, and then after that, we let's go to the gym, and then we shower, and then work, and then work, and then work, and then work. You guys see a pattern here, right? It doesn't make sense to keep repeating this. So what can we do then when we want to just say work and have it span all of these columns? Well, one of the things you can do in spanning columns is you can just basically say, hey, we're going to span these columns. And the easiest way to do that is to go to the first element that is repeating, and we'll use the column attribute of column span, and we're going to specify how many columns it's going to span. Now, the easy way to count this is, first of all, recognize the number of columns you want to cover. So we have work, 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 and work. Anyone can do the math. How many works is that? How many times is this specified?
4.
4 times. So I'm going to specify that 4 times, and then I'm going to I'm going to delete the rest of those. Okay, so I'll refresh it. And now you can see that work is spanning this entire section because we've applied that column span. So this is some of the interesting things that you can, of course, do. Well, let's think about other things that might span rows instead of columns. Let's say that I know I'm going to be at the gym every morning at 6:30 every morning. So if I'm at the gym every morning at 6:30 and I want it to span every day of the week from Saturday to Sunday, well, let's not do that. Let's say after eating breakfast, you guys go to church. Let's say that. And then over here on Monday, you have, let's see, showering. Let's say next is, actually, let's do gym here at this particular time. So we'll refresh this so we can visualize it. So every morning from 6 a.m. to, let's say, 7. 6:30, 6 a.m. to 7, you're at the gym, Monday through Friday. Are you guys ever that rigorous? I can't see your faces, so I don't know, right? Let's see, where's the chat at? By the way, thank you for your well-wishing, guys. I appreciate that. I just noticed many of you were hoping I get better. All right. So what we want to do is we want to span both the column and the row. So we want to span the columns and the rows. Let's first just make it easy. Let's just go ahead and span the rows. So we'll use the row span, and we want to basically cover Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to specify 5. If we save that, it's going to create some awkward looking text here, right? Because now we have this layout that's a little strange as far as how it's pushed everything. because now it's pushed everything to the right. Well, what was happening on the first spot of all of these? Well, it says showering. So I'm just going to go in here and delete showering. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. All right, I save that, refresh it. Okay, now that's lined up a little bit better. But I want to go from the gym from what time to what time? 6 to 7, right? All right. So right now, the column span I've applied, the row span I've applied here says that it's going to go across these rows. But I also want it to go across the columns by 2. So I'll say column span 2. I'll save that and refresh it. And again, now it's off. It's a little weird. We got everything popping out to the right. Well, what happens? What's supposed to happen that during that time that wasn't there before? Let me take it back out again so you could see. Take it back out. It's drinking coffee is the time that was in there, right? So if we put it back in again, we need to take out drinking coffee to make everything align again. So we're going to do that. Right? And if we refresh it, oh, we missed one. Here it is. So now we've aligned saying that Monday through Friday from 6 to 7, we're going to be at the gym. All right, that makes a lot of sense, right? That's really an easy way to kind of lay out our table cells and how we want them to be represented. I'll get it right. Okay. So this is all good and well, but maybe we want, certain things to be highlighted differently, right? It would make sense that we'd want some of these things to stand out maybe a little differently. Well, what we could do, we could basically come in here to our style, and we could say that table schedule, let's see, TD and let's see. Let's go back to our table. Let's apply a class in here. And we'll apply this class and we'll just say spanned. Okay. And I'm going to grab that class and I'm also going to put it over here under spanned. We come back to our section and we type TD spanned. And let's say we want a background color of, let's say light salmon, and refresh it. Now those areas kind of stand out a little bit more, but it also makes sense. We would really like these to be centered more, right? So let's look at that. How could we center these? Let's try a text align of center. And now those elements are centered for us across those columns. All right, that kind of helps. Let's now look though at the styling of this bottom header, right? What do I really want that bottom section to say for me? Well, I could have it be the time of the day. It could be that, but maybe what I want for my T row at the bottom, T footer at the bottom, is to be a, where did it go? There it is. Maybe really what I want is for this itself to have one column span of 7 and weekly schedule. So if I save that, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think that this style, TD span, is going to affect it? What do you think? Well, let's see. We actually have 8, don't we? Because let me do it that way. Okay. So now we have our weekly schedule, and it as a header automatically centered things. So that's one of the items to kind of keep in mind with your TH tags. You'll notice that all your TH tags are automatically centered, whereas your TDs are left aligned, right? So maybe I want, this makes sense to keep it that way, to leave it the way it is so far. All right. So far we've covered some of the styling attributes. We've covered how to add a T footer, how to add a T head and a T body. We've talked about the table rows and the table data elements or table cells. If it's easier to remember this as a table data element, then do so, because it's really what the abbreviation stands for. And finally, we also talked about the row spans and the column spans. All right. Let's look at one other thing here. Let's say that I want each row. Let's say that I want this first column of anything that's TR, TD in the first column, right? How would I do that in a style sheet? Let's see. We have the table, schedule, TR. Let's see. We went TD, and I believe nth. Those of you who've done the reading this week, do you remember what it's called? Let's see. Let me look it up real quick. So I give you the, let's see, table, let's see, HTML, TD, first column style. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to say TR, TD, nth, child, and we're going to specify 1. Okay. And for this one, we're going to give a text align of right. Let's see if what we did worked. There we go. All right, let's talk about this style representation here. With TD colon pseudo class nth child, we're basically saying that the number child from this spot, we want to affect it. So if I would have said 2 instead, you see it affected the second element. And for the second element, it also affects the column span, right? You could also do something like this. You could say 1n plus 2. And now we're only saying only do these items, right? So in general, we're addressing the first element. And let's apply something else here. Maybe we want our left column to be a little bold, right? So we can do that through text, let's see, font weight, right? And we'll just say bold. So now we have the day aligned to the right, and it's in bold. And maybe we want this column to be a different color as well, something that stands out from the rest. Well, what type of background color would we apply? We could do something close to the color we have before, which is, what is that? A dark slate gray. Let's see if there's just a slate gray. I think there is. Yeah. So we've done a little bit here to kind of lay out some different styling attributes and things that we want. Now, of course, I'm not too happy with the font choice here. So let's go ahead and adjust the font for this. We're just going to say body. Everything in the body is going to be, whoops. Everything in the body is going to have a font family of, yeah, let's do that one. Some type of sans serif. We apply that, we can see it lays it out. Let's set the table font width, font size. Let's make that to a 10px, right? That's kind of nice. Let's bring it up just a little bit more though. There we go. What else could we do to this? You guys have any ideas? Don't all speak at once.
Looks good.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Looks good.
Looks good.
Yeah.
Well, let's think about another styling element. Sometimes when we're looking at tabular data, our eyes, they tend to kind of blur looking at lines, right? So for example, someone sends you an Excel spreadsheet and says, I need you to analyze this data. Your eyes naturally are just going to kind of get lost, like what column, what row am I on? I don't understand, right? And so just as we also have this TRTD nth child, we can also do something where we can apply the styling to, let me see if I can find it for you real quick here. We can apply the styling so that every other row is actually changed in color, right? And the way we would do that is, again, doing the same process like we did before. We could see, we'll come over here, we'll specify within our table. Actually, let's do this on the bottom table to make it more visually understandable. So we're going to say this affects all tables inside of a T-body, children, nth, let's see, nth child, and we want this to be every other. I'm trying to remember here. Let me remember. Yeah. So the command here is very easy. We can use either even or we can use odd. It's very common to use even. And so we're going to say that for on the even rows, that the background color is going to be a light, let's say a light gray. And when we apply that, we can see that we get this this kind of coloring schema that works for us. Now that helps because now when we look at the line, we look at that table line, we actually see, we get better understanding of what is happening. Now we can even take it even a step further, and we can do something like this. We can say table T-body for TRs, hover, and we want the background color to be, let's say, aqua. And we want the font style to be italic. So now we're using a style class on our tables, but when we hover over them, we can see it now really gives us a good idea where we're at. Oh, well, what am I doing on Friday? Well, on Friday, I'm going to the gym. I'm working out, doing push-ups, studying, yada, 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 right? You can get a visual understanding of what's going on per section. Okay. The next area we probably want to look at here, this is on creating a table caption. And captions are just like what you would see on most articles. They'll have, or some images, they'll have a caption underneath it that specifies what it is. So to apply the caption, really all we do is we come in here to the web table itself, we go to the top and we specify the caption tag. And we're going to say my weekly schedule, right? Now, when we think about this, we're putting the caption at the top of the table class, right? But where does it actually end up showing up? Do you guys know? Anyone like to make a guess where this caption will show up?
Bottom.
You're exactly right. Whoops, look at that. It showed up at the top. Now I made a liar. Okay. You should, here we go. I was made a liar there. I messed up and told you the wrong thing. The caption will show up at the top, but let's say that we want the caption to show up somewhere else. Well, we can say table, specify the table, and then caption. And then we're going to say caption side, and we can specify bottom. My bad, guys. I led you astray, right? We can also specify the text alignment. Let's say that this is aligned to the right, right? We can specify the caption side property gives us a couple of different options here. We can say it's at the top. We can say it's at the bottom, or again, it could be the inherit or the initial. I believe I'm not sure what unset does. I think unset just, it puts it back to the top, to the default. So you have two choices really, bottom or top, or you can let it be the default, which is also at the top. All right, I'm going to keep mine at the bottom for right now. So do that. Whoops, cancel. Save the wrong window. There we go. It's at the bottom. Now we have a couple other things that we can do here. We can say caption position. And for caption position, we can specify the position where we think it should be. Caption position is a lot like our text align. So we can say caption position is left. Let's see here. Make sure I'm giving you the right information here. This always happens in every class where I fumble over this. Let's see. CSS caption position. It doesn't look like this is actually a property. It's kind of interesting because the textbook mentioned it. All right, so let me go back here. When we want to align it, we do just like I said here. We can align it to the left, the right. You can justify it if the characters are sufficient enough to have full justification. In this instance, when you justify it, it doesn't spread it out enough and it defaults to the left position. But in our instance, we want it to show up on the right. Okay. Other things that we can do here with our caption, we've aligned them to the right, align it to the left, the top, or the bottom. Let's go ahead and do one other thing to our web table. I'm going to take my table here and I'm going to put this in a div. Wrap this top table in a div anyways, so we can see the differences here. And format the document. Well, it's interesting. It doesn't want to. There we go. So we have this in a div, and I'm going to specify a class up here, and we're going to call this our schedule container. Make sure I save it. And we'll say div schedule container. We're going to give this a padding, internal padding of 20px. Go ahead and do that. We can see the 20 pixels up here at the top. We want to set a background color for this area, and we're going to make this a light yellow. We'll do that. And it sets it off a little bit. And then finally, we'll just do a border of 1px. We're going to make it solid and black. And now we have our table kind of stored it in a little section. Now, you guys know that with the border, you can also do things like dashed, right? It kind of gives you a dashed line. There's many different options you can use there. There is inset, right? To see the inset, we need to change that a little bit. So now we have let's change this color. Yeah, so you can see the inset now. It gives that little bit of a raised angle. You have different options you can use there for for this. So I'm just going to stick with solid for right now, just for simplicity, and bring the size. Let's make this a 2px. Okay. So we've got our schedule laid out a little bit. I think I want my outer border of this to be a little bit bigger. So I'm going to make this a 5 for the table. There we go. And let's change the border color for this table to maybe purple. That looks like a good color there. Right. And for this one, I am going to make it, let's do ridged. Right. Okay. For those of you wondering why this save keeps coming up, is because I'm clicking save in the wrong window. I did it again. There we go. When you click save in a web browser, it tries to save that web page for you. And that's not what we wanted to do. All right, so we have our table header, we have our caption. What else could we possibly do to this? What do you think we could do? Anyone have any ideas? I'm just going to change some of the data for making it more interesting. Don't forget leg day, right? All right. Let's go on with what we have here. We also have some other things that we can add to organize our data, and these are called row groups and column groups. So right now we kind of have some of these laid out when we use things like spanned classes and row spans, right? They kind of sort of resemble, row and column groups, but the creators, the working group of HTML, decided that it would really be beneficial to have some other things to better capture what a row group is or a column group. So in itself, let me find the definition here for you of row groups. The textbook says this: the table we've created so far really made no distinction between rows that you use to contain the column headers and the rows that contain the table data. To add this information into the structure of the table, you create row groups in which each row group contains specific table information. HTML supports 3 row groups, which define rows that belong to the table head, table body, and table footer. Okay, so we've got the row groups. We've actually already created those, the row group for table head, table body, and table footer. So what is it with a column group, though, right? What do column groups represent? So far, we always see are the alignment of these table header cells and table data cells. And we know that if they line up in such a way that, we can recognize a column. But what is a column group? Well, a column group, basically, this is an HTML tag that marks your table columns. And the columns themselves are determined implicitly based on the number of cells within the table rows. Okay. We can reference these columns for creating our designs and making them a little bit easier to understand. So let's think about our column groups for a moment. Let's take let's create a column group up here underneath our caption. And this column group is going to specify a couple of columns. First column it will specify is the ID will be days of week. And the next column that we're going to specify, this is going to be for a class, and this is going to be our hours of day, right? And this column group, as you can see, is above the T head. Now, if we save this, there's really nothing special that's happened here. So how do we use these column groups? Well, let's go back to our CSS, and we're going to take out this nth representation here, because this is really how we were recognizing this one particular column group. So we're going to take this out. In actuality, let's just comment it out. And then we're also going to comment out, let's see. Where are you at? Where's that light yellow at? That's the light yellow. Right. Okay, so the light yellow is bleeding through on our TDs. So if we look at our TD here and we say background color of Alice blue, we'll notice that the background color of the odd rows will change, right? Actually, it overrode everything, didn't it? Let's see, what is background color is inherit. There we go. So we're going to take that out for right now. We're going to come back to that in a second. All right, so let's focus on the column group. We've specified a column ID of days of the week, which is right here. This is what we're going to align this to. And we specified a column group with a class name of hours of day. So if we come over here, let's go to, first of all, our column group of days of, how do we specify that again? Day of week. Okay, day of week. We're using the hashtag because the hashtag identifies an ID. All right, so we have that hashtag set, and let's set the background color of our day of the week. Let's set it to slate gray. All right, I'm going to do that. We'll refresh, and we can see that now the column for this first column group, where'd it go? There it is. It aligns to the first column here. Now, you may not have caught that at first, but basically what we're doing here is semantically, this column tag will, the first one for a column will always align to the first column inside of every row. Right? That's what that column, the first in does. And then hours of the day, let's go back to our hours of the day, and we're going to say column dot hours of, I can't remember, I'm losing my mind. Here we go, hours of day. I'll just copy it. And we're going to say this has a font weight of 100. We'll save it. Nothing seems to have happened there, so that makes sense. We'll say this has a font weight of bold. Am I not? Let's see here. Something's overriding it. Table schedule TD. Are you saving it? You guys are still with me, right? You're very quiet.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
All right. What I was doing there, guys, basically, if there is like some type of error that's being thrown and I can't see it, sometimes going to the console and clicking refresh will show whatever error it's picked up in trying to interpret this information. So for whatever reason, again, cascading style sheets, there's a style that cascades and wins. And it looks like something is winning as far as the font weight. I'm not sure what's doing that. All right, so let's set the background color for these. We'll say it's white. Make sure I've got this set up right here. Oh, that's probably why you see that. My class got overwritten. All right. The other thing that I left off here is actually the span of this. So we need to specify the span that this is going to, that these columns are going to affect. So the first column is already addressed. So basically I need to count from this column here, including itself over. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So we'll set 7 on this. Go back here, make sure this is set, save it, and refresh. And now you can see that the background color changed. If you didn't catch that, if we comment, well, I think even that error will do it, right? Yeah, the error on the page will affect it as well. But you can see with it not listed there, the background is yellow, light yellow. With it set, the background for those elements has changed. So that sets up the column groups, right? And that gives us, that covers the idea of both the row groups, which are your T heads, your T bodies, and T footers, and your column groups, which specify, are specified in this top section up here by column, column group tag and the column itself. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Anything that you'd like to see this do that still don't maybe make sense?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's have fun with this real quick. Let's say that on a particular TD on hover, I want the T-foot TRTH. Let's see, on hover, I want the trying to think how to do this without getting into JavaScript. let's say was it content? Let's just see if that works first. It's not giving me what I want. I think the only way I could do this is through JavaScript. The idea here is that we would use on hover, we want to change this bottom section. But I think we can only do that through JavaScript to get that to happen, which we're about to start looking at here in a couple of weeks. So we'll be doing the next phase of our web development that way. Okay. We looked at creating the banded rows. So right here, we've used the child with either the even or the odd. Of course, you can also change this and you can have the opposite rows be a different color if you wanted to do that. So for example, right now we have this section and we could say that the even rows are going to have a maybe that color, right? There's a lot of cool things you can do here with this. You can also specify what row you want this to affect. So we could say we want inside of our table, we want the T-body, all the rows, the nth child, and I'm not sure if last is an option. Let's see. We'll say background color. Let's change this to blue. I don't know if last is actually a property we could use. I don't think so. Let me see here. There's a way to do this. I think it's a selector. Let me find it real quick. Yep. I'm overthinking it. If we do that, it should do it. Let's take, let's see here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the odd, I believe, is overriding it. Let's see if I can force it. Nope, can't force it either. Yeah, I think you have to maybe. We got nth child even. Did we mess something up here? Light gray. Odd. Nope. Nope. This is not working. I'm not sure why. Let me come back on this one. Obviously there's something here that is not accepting the value in the child. Duh. Okay. How about that, guys? What am I missing? You guys see what I'm missing anywhere? Is that it? There we go. All right. So as you can see for this one, we're basically saying that the last child is going to have this color, right? And if we take out the important, I think it still would work because that is the specificity of it. Nope. You have to have the important. Otherwise, if we put this at the bottom, there we go. All right. So again, remember the rule, right? Think about it. I don't know if you can see my hand here, but as we're cascading down, right? So whatever is the last rule wins. So notice that putting this at the top didn't win unless I gave it an important, right? But because I move it to the bottom, last rule wins. So the first rule is odd, which is the first one and the last because there's 7. Even sets it to this pink color. The last child it's the last rule. So it forces that bottom one to be that color. And of course, we still have the hover in place that changes each of these on hover, right? Okay. Let's go ahead and look at a couple other things here with height and width. Is everyone good on time so far?
Yes.
Okay. By the way, everything we've covered so far is touching in some shape or form on your homework. Okay. Your homework involves setting up a schedule for your day. And in fact, let me pull it up here real quick. Yeah, so you're creating, I'm going to drag this over. You're creating for your homework, you're creating a weekly schedule. And just about everything that we've touched on today deals with this. All right. Okay, so going back to our document, so far what we've done is we've created the schedule, we've lined it out. We've done a lot of whiz-bang features. We've on hover and so forth. We've created column groups, got everything lined out really well. But what about the table widths themselves? We can also specify the widths of these column groups. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's take the days of the week, and we're going to specify a width on the day of the week. And we're going to basically say the width is 16%, right? 16%. And for the rest of these, the hours of the day, let's give it a width of 12%. So when we do that, let's see what happens here with what we get. Well, first of all, it expands it out to the complete width of the page, number one, because we're working with the allowable width of the window when we use the percentages. So as we expand this, it's going to grow and shrink to the appropriate width that we have. And that's really what we desire, right? We want our tables themselves to be responsive. Of course, when we come back up to our table itself, it might be a good idea to set the overall width of the table to 100%, right? And now the overall width of that table is set to match the screen. And in general, we're still maintaining the percentages. So down here, it's 16% of that 100% is this allowable field. But as we expand, all of the fields are basically, they're going to still maintain that aspect ratio. So let's change this out to 26% so we can see a little bit better dynamic layout of what happens. And as such, you may have noticed there right away, the text itself, it wraps, right? Because it's given a less allowable size range. And of course, as you pull it out, it's going to do what we expected. There's a number of things we could do here as well. We can say that we want to keep our tables with a more narrow layout. We can fix them so that they don't expand. We can ensure that the wording inside will always wrap. And if we wanted to make sure that the wording inside of text always wraps, we would go into our TD and our TH, and we would just simply just say word wrap is going to be break word. And what that gives us the ability to do when we set it like that, if the size of the word is too small, it should wrap it. And of course, as you can see, it is wrapping things appropriately there. If we look at the break word, there's also a couple other properties here that we can use. We have normal, we have inherit, initial, and unset. And again, break word, what break word is doing is if the string is too long and it can't wrap, break word is going to say, break that word into two pieces. So if a word is too long, it's going to find a natural spot to break it. So let's just demonstrate here by taking this particular area. We'll make it super long. Refresh the page, right? And it's naturally pulling it off the screen for us. Let's take a look what happened with our break word. Do we have it still in place? Word wrap, word break, break all. There we go. And now it's broke the word, as you can see. So break word is going to separate words by natural spacing. Break all is going to say, hey, if the letters are too long, go ahead and wrap it to the next line. And because we have a natural width set down here at the bottom of 12%, this one word up here that is so long, as you can see, it breaks it along the character lines that it can allow to match the original percentage. All right, any questions so far with word wrap and word break? Okay. We're approaching about 15 more minutes to go here on what we're looking at with tables. Now, you can also apply table styles in other ways, like you can basically, you can tell the table if you want it to display or not. Let's go ahead and refresh that, get it back to normal. We can set, if we want the table to be display, we can say display none, which, you know, That may not make sense, but you can do that. And with the display, you have display block. You also have display table. And you can display table in line, table row group, header group, and so forth. Now, if you're thinking about display table, it applies to the table tag, to the table element. If we're thinking about some of the other display possibilities like the column, well, we could do display and table column group, and that display tag will actually affect the column group, right? Now, in this instance, let's take it out and add it again so you can see what happened. We'll save it, refresh it. Basically, adding the column group is going to save it again. There we go. It's going to force the natural sizing. We can also use the table styling on other things like data definitions. We haven't really talked about data definitions, but let me take out this bottom section real quick, and we'll type in some code to look at that. So we have a couple of different things we could do: data list, data definitions, and the data list area is basically a DL. And inside of the DL, we're going to specify a DT. This is the data tag itself. And so I'm going to use the example we have out of the book here, bandwidth. We'll do a DD, which is the data definition, a measure of data transfer speed over a network, right? We'll do another data tag. And this is basically, the DT is kind of like the label, and the DD is the definition, okay? So we'll say HTTP, and this is going to be the data definition for it. The protocol used to communicate with web servers. All right, now if we take a look at that code, it's very basic what we see here at the bottom. We can see just a simple kind of layout for those, but you can also specify how you want those to be laid out. So for example, we have our DL. Let's go ahead and wrap some of this in some divs, and we're going to wrap the first data tag and data definition in a div, and then we're going to create another one and wrap it in a div. And overall, when you when you look at that code, it's not really going to make a lot of sense on the page. It's going to look pretty much the same, but this gives us a way to kind of lay out the styling of it. So if we think about in our CSS, we have a DL tag, and we have a div, and then inside of that div, we have a nested DT and a nested DD. So let's think about how we would want to maybe lay these out in a column fashion like what we have up here. Let's go to our styles, and we're going to come down here and we're going to specify a DL, and we're going to basically say the DL, this has a display of table. We're going to give it a border collapse of collapse, and we're going to specify a width of 300 px. We'll refresh that, lay it out again, and you can see it kind of move things over a little bit in some fashion there in the bottom. All right, so that's for our DL. Let's look at the DL div element, right? The DL div element, we also want to have this to have a display, but this div element is really like our table row. So we're going to specify table row, and we'll refresh. Okay. And then we're going to come down here and do a DT and a DD. And we're going to basically tell it that the display for this is going to be a table table cell. And we're going to give this a border of 1px solid black. We'll go down to the next line, and we'll give this a vertical line of top. And finally, we're going to use a padding, just a simple padding here of 5 pixels. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to wrap this in a tabular format, just like what we see up here with our tables. And this is important because this means that we can actually align many different types of elements in a tabular design. We could have divs, and we could have articles, and many other things flow in many of the same ways that tables are set up, just by using the appropriate CSS applications for these. All right. When we're thinking about the columns and the column numbers, let's say that on our text over here, I have an article, and this article I'm going to populate with some dollar text. We're just going to grab a generator real quick, because I don't want to type for that long for what I need to do to demonstrate this. Boy, it's taken a while to get this to come up. Come on. Let's try another one. Much better. Let's set it to generate 10 paragraphs. Okay. And we're going to copy the text. I'm just going to paste all that in. We'll go back to our original document, and we'll display it. Now, if we were looking at this, let me expand it out just a little bit to kind of give this a better look and feel. This is really a lot of text to read, and it can become very difficult when you're looking at this much text to kind of lose scope. Now, what web designers have found is it's better for large bodies of text to kind of align them in columns that are about like that width, right? About that width that you see right here. Now, the way we achieve that is we can specify a column group, okay? We can specify a column group in our CSS. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk about my article here, the article tag. And inside of that, I'm going to specify a column count. And I'm going to say for that size, let's see, let's give it 2, right? We'll go ahead and refresh. And now it's naturally taken that text and it's broken it and wrapped it back up to the top again. So if we were to look at our text here, let's say we have inside of our article, we have an H1 lorem ipsum dolor text, right? And I'm going to copy that H1 and I'm going to go down, say about right there, and paste another one. Let's go ahead and refresh the screen to see what we get. So we have this text and you can see that it's broken it up like so. Let's put another right here. There we go. And now we kind of get a look and feel of what, how our text might be laid out on a page. So let me make sure it's saved. Yeah. So it gives us a column look and feel. Now, we can also adjust this and we can say that our columns maybe are 3. So we'll refresh it. Now we have 3 columns. And there really isn't a bad choice here. If your page is being viewed normal on a page like this, you want to think about what's easier for your reader to kind of wrap their head around. And using a column split like this gives us that ability. Now, keep in mind, some older browsers, they don't support this. And so we have a workaround for that. And we haven't really talked about these too much, but we can say we can use the Moz column count 3. And we might have to specify one for the WebKit. Column count 3. And again, we want to make sure that we do this in a way that makes sense. So we want our column, the one that's supported by HTML, to be at the bottom, and the others we want to keep at the top. Now, of course, in this environment, this is not going to affect anything. It's going to fail, and it's going to come down to the column count and use the appropriate one. But for some devices, you are going to run into that issue. Other things that we can do here, we can specify some column gaps. So say we want our column width to have a particular size. We could say for the column, we're going to give it a size. I can spell, I know I can. Column width, or give it a size of, say, 20%, right? And that's going to basically use a 20% of the page. We can specify it in other ways. We can specify the width in pixels. So we can say that each column is going to be no more than 250 pixels in width. Is that hang on. There we go. Okay, and as you can see there, by specifying the width, the columns grow to the specified amount. So if you have a large amount of text, then you can easily achieve that. But if we go back to, say, let's say 30% the size, each column, it's going to adjust to match that column width. Okay. All right. Guys, we are getting right about to the end of this, and there's still a few more things to cover. There is column breaks and spanning cell columns and so forth, but I think that's about all we can cover for today. Everybody, if you have any questions, please send them to me in email. Otherwise, your assignment for today is what you see here, and pretty much everything we've covered today in class is useful for this. I'll try to post the recording here shortly, since I'm already at home and I'm sitting here at the computer. Other than that, if you don't have any questions, I will see you all later.